Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Art of Performance podcast with two of the hairiest mofos in the fitness game, Mr. Akos and myself. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. Episode 53, brother. What's going on? How are we?
We're doing it, mate. We're getting there. I'm very well, mate. We're getting there, aren't we? We are getting there. Gunning down that 100. I want to get that 100 quick.
It's coming. I reckon by summer next year, we'd have had 100.
Do the 100. Got to do
We've
it.
got the 100 in
That's
us.
going to be a big one.
Yeah. The 100th episode needs to be an absolute showstopper.
Yeah, we've got to do a live somewhere, like together somewhere. Yeah.
That's a great idea. Right, there you go, team. We've already started looking into the future. Studio, bang, bang, bang. So, ladies and gents, today we are going to discuss something that is definitely a hot topic in the whole of the fitness space right now. And it's all about wearables. Like, wearables have become the must-have in fitness, whether you're chasing composition, whether you're into high rocks, CrossFit, functional fitness, marathons, whatever. Like Whoop straps, Aura rings, Apple watches, and the Fitbits, every other health tracking tool that you could possibly fucking imagine is being used. And I think I've probably used every damn one of them, to be honest with you, at some point.
I think the Whoop is the only one I've not used. I think I've used every single other thing you can think of.
I suppose the question is, though, are they actually helping, or are they like supplements where they are probably not useful unless you've got all of your other shit in one sock and it just becomes expensive piss? Or alternatively, are they just expensive distractions keeping people from actually doing what really fucking matters? What are your opening thoughts, my man?
Because I mean, this where Dean done a post today, guys, about this. So this was like, we got to talk about this. It's such a great subject. It was like it hit home for me because I've been a data guy all my life with fitness, and I love to see data. I'm very analytical in my approach. So from a long time ago, I've loved to see as much data as possible. But when you done that post, mate, it did hit home. It's like, how many times have I actually actioned and made a change to the data that I've received when I've got I've got an Aura ring and I've had it, I've been from an original Aura, I've gone all the way through. And I was nearly going to buy the Gen 4. So I've got a Gen 3. Why do I need the Gen 4?
Because it's shiny and it's got a wearable, it's got a new thing on it. It's new. I want the new stuff.
I want it. But yeah, it was so true. It hit home to me that actually I haven't actioned any change to my training, to my recovery from the data. But I still need the data. I still want the data because I'm the data dude and I just need the data. And, if my clients hear that, my athletes, they're going to kill me because I've said to them for the last few years, if you can, get one because it's some data that I can use. So, yeah, it's a really interesting one. I have used the data. I have, in the past, adjusted my programming. I have implemented some changes from the data that I've got. But for the last, let's say, 6 months to 8 months, regardless of the number, I do the same shit. So it was like, it did hit home for me, mate. It was a good post. It was a very good post. What's your thoughts? Well, obviously, we know your thoughts.
Well, yeah, but
you don't use a wearable.
I do. So I've actually, and again, I've still got the props here on the desk. I've got I've got a Gen 2 Whoop, a Gen 3 Whoop, and a Gen 4 Whoop. I've got an Aura ring here. I've got an Apple Health Watch. Like, I've got the stuff.
Hell, mate. You've got more than me.
The stuff and I've used the stuff. But all of it's been used or purchased because my athletes and my clients have used it and had it, and I've needed to understand how to interpret the data that's coming out of it. So It's been used, but it's been used in a period of time or in a frame of mind that's allowed me to try and help people better understand the information that's coming out. Like, I've been with Whoop for years, absolutely years. I think when their first generation 1 came out in like on the back end of like 2018, maybe 2017. In fact, probably sooner than that, to be honest.
Yeah.
When they first became a bit of a sexy thing and people were measuring HRV and recovery scores, and it's just evolved and evolved and evolved. And I've still got the old Whoop strap upstairs, and it's like a big block battery that used to go over it. It was a nightmare. It was literally
now.
So
yeah.
The reason for getting an Oura ring or the reason for understanding Apple Health and understanding other wearables is because when athletes and clients were giving me that data, it's not that sometimes when, for example, with a Fitbit, I've had a Fitbit in the past, so I kind of knew the information that was coming out. With an Oura ring, though, when people were telling me their sleep score and their recovery pieces, I was like, what does that mean? What does that mean on the app? And how does that look? So I think in a coach's world, it can be quite valuable. But everywhere we seem to look, all of the people that we're influenced by are pushing the narrative that these wearables are the gold standard thing that we need to be using to track our sleep score. And I think it's great. I think contextually, it's great when we interpret the information and do something with it. But
Yeah,
the
absolutely.
difficulty is actually acting on the thing of doing something with it. Whereas so many people have just got, they want to improve their sleep. They want to improve HRV, recovery, data, information about digestion. They want to journal all this stuff, calories
It's a bit
burned.
information overload, isn't it? It's just like you don't need that much data. You need to know what in initial phases. You need a bit of data on sleep. You need a bit of data on maybe possibly heart rate variability because that'll give you a recovery index. That the rest of the stuff, it's the tech wearables fault. So they're just trying to give you more data. And if you ask 10 people that have got you an Oura ring and a Whoop, other than just looking at the score and determining how good the day is on that score, would they really know and understand what their heart rate variability means, what that even means, how long they should be in deep sleep, how long they should, and that's the question. So you've got all this data. 90% of the users don't know what they're doing with the data. They don't know how to interpret it. And they're just using the overall score that the thing, because it can have a negative effect, isn't it? Because you could feel fine, right? And you could feel absolutely fine. I'm going to have a good day. And then you see a low recovery index score or, a low sleep score. And you're like, oh crap, no, it's going to be a bad day. And it's a self-fulfilling prophecy because if you feel like it's going to be like that, it's going to end up being like that.
Yeah, I
So
agree. I absolutely agree.
I've seen that.
Yeah,
I've seen that quite a lot.
I've asked those two. I asked the questions on the post that I stuck out with the intention of trying to get people to think more holistically about what's going on. Like, let's be honest. How many times has somebody looked at their recovery score on their Whoop and then changed or manipulated their training output? How many times has somebody woken up, taken data or metrics from their resting heart rate and realized there's been quite an exponential spike in where their resting heart rate is? And again, we're not just talking about using Whoop for a quick period of time or Oura Ring for a short period of time. This is seeing trends in data and then seeing a big spike in your resting heart rate, which could be an indication of actually how much the bucket is overfilled, to put it quite simply. It could be an indication of physiologically and psychologically what demands you've been placing your body under over the past X amount of weeks that's led to that point in where the exponential heart rate is increased. Going even further afield, asking questions about like, what are you doing with that information? Are you adapting things and changing things? Or equally and alternatively, we use food journaling and health tracking apps from food productivity as well and food diary management. Yet, if somebody has a digestive ailment or a digestive issue, like whatever it might be, indigestion, gassiness, bloating, heartburn, all the way down to things like leaky gut and all of these other digestive based ailments, if you are doing that and you're tracking your food and journaling it, but not doing anything with that information about the food, well, why track in the first place? If it's to measure and manage calories, okay, but if you've not changed your calories in 3 years, what's the fucking point? If you haven't changed your calories in 3 years, but you're still tracking all your food, well, why waste time tracking food? It makes no sense. And it's not like, but this is the thing, right? Because we've gamified this process and we've sexified and it's been influenced by so many huge professionals in the space that if we actually take a step back and acknowledge what's going on and reflect on whether or not the information in the data is changing a certain outcome, fantastic. We're doing something about it. That's great. But it goes back to the age-old saying, doesn't it? Like, if you consistently keep doing the same thing, not getting any different outcome, that's the definition of fucking insanity.
Literally.
And it's because we think it's trendy and we think it's sexy. So like you've just alluded to there, mate, I think this is such a great point to kind of come in at, is that it's over tracking. It's paralysis by
analysis.
Paralysis by analysis in a nutshell, isn't it? Like, how often have you found yourself in that position before?
Absolutely. I think because when you're when you like to analyze stuff, you're always going to overanalyze, always. So I think I think what I've done with my data is just taking it very objectively, like it's some data, it's some input, but you don't have to make big changes to it. The thing is, I'd probably say the reason why I haven't changed anything from the scores is I've over this, let's say the 6 months, I've got less, what's the word? I've got less faith that it's actually giving me the right data. Because I'll give you examples. I've had nights where I'm up all night and I can't sleep, but I'm lying down, I'm not moving, but just my brain won't switch off. And then I wake up and I've got an 87 score sleep, and I'm like, well, that's bollocks, because I fucking didn't sleep at all last night. My brain wouldn't switch off. So then you start losing a bit of faith in terms of what data am I actually getting here, and how much do I interpret this as accurate. So what I've done is sort of go, okay, look, let's pull it back a little bit. Let's not worry about every time heart rate variability spikes, and that's, like stress levels and stuff like that. Let's just use a little bit of biofeedback on myself. How do I feel? What do I feel? Did I wake up refreshed? Like, we're forgetting to use this stuff now because we're using all the data. Like, let's just wait for Aura to tell us whether I had good sleep or not. Like, I know how I feel in the morning. I know if I've had a good night's sleep or not. So we've stopped using that basic level of, how do you feel when you wake up? Did you feel knackered? Okay, you're probably not well rested, So I use it sparingly. Things that I have used it for, which is actually really powerful, is like when you've noticed body temperature started to climb last couple of days, and you can get ahead of like a immunity response where you're like, okay, my body's fighting something here. I'm like, on the verge. You can attack it a little bit, because things like vitamin C won't work once you're unwell. It doesn't help with immunity. It needs to be in before you get unwell. It's like to boost immunity. Once you're ill, it's in the system. It is what it is. So body temperature and stuff like that, you can go, okay, look, I've seen a trend that my body temperature is going up. For women, cycle tracking, obviously body temperature coming up, having a good understanding. All right, we know exactly where we are, rather, because obviously cycle periods change. Some are less than 26 days, some are plus 30 days. Understanding that fluctuation, especially perimenopausal, menopausal, and seeing the trends in and cycle tracking on your thing can be a little bit of data that you can use. But
and that's the disconnect, isn't it?
Yeah, that's the disconnect. It's like, okay, I'm just leaving Aura or Whoop to tell me how I feel and what I'm doing for the next day. And because I lost the trust in the data that I was getting, I was like, I can't use that data exactly. I can't.
And then you also look at things like data paralysis, where you might wake up one morning and your Aura Ring or your Whoop strap say, okay, you've got a recovery score of 30% today, or you're 10% recovered. Yet at that point in time, you've woken up, you feel pretty good. And we're now losing an opportunity whereby we can create or hit quite a good stimulus in a training session, but you've pulled that back and decided not to hit that training session or change the training session entirely, because your score on a Whoop strap or an Aura Ring has then dictated where you're doubling down on your training or not. So, and this is where it comes back to that data paralysis by analysis. And it's all the it's the inverse effect that's had on what you've just said, where you look at your sleep score and you're like, hang on a minute, I slept for like 2 hours last night. At least it felt like it. And you're telling me I'm 85% recovered. Something's not quite right. But this is why I think that disconnect is so easy. And it's so easy for people to actually manipulate, or the data to manipulate so many decisions. And if that comes up, there's 3 simple questions that you can ask every morning when you wake up. How do I feel in regards to like overall energy levels? What's my motivation to actually train, for example, or go and do X or go and do Y, and whatever that actually looks like, and how that might be affected? And then the third question could be something centered around, what did I do yesterday that needs to be considered or taken into account for today?
Mm.
And 3 simple questions that you could just think about subjectively and holistically on how you feel. And we're not saying that Whoop or Aura or Health or Wearables are terrible, because they're not useless. They are absolutely
No,
useful, but they're
no.
useful in the context when A, people know how to use them, and B, you're acting on the information that is being given to you. And I'll be honest, when I first got a Whoop strap, like, a lot of it dictated how I did things. So when I was measuring my overall strain throughout the week, I would have high stim, moderate stim, and low stimulus days. And I knew that in a range, as a trend, anything that was over a 15.0 score would normally be a high stim, high volume, high output type of day. I knew that anywhere between that 15.0 and an 8.1 or a 9.1 or whatever it was would be in and around that moderate stimulus day. And then a low output day would be below that. So if I know that I've had extra training, I've been coaching, I've been on my feet all day, we've lifted and carried loads of different equipment from place to place or whatever it might be, and that strain's been adding and adding and adding, could that then inform the way in which I attack the training session later on in the day? Yes, it could. And all I'll do is, rather than change the intensity, I would just change the volume of what I would do.
Mhm.
That would be always the first port of call that I would go to.
Yep,
Rip back a couple of sets and
yep,
then work on what things I might do in terms of managing load. So
yep.
for me, my personal experience with using Whoop, I found that quite useful. But then it got to a point, like you said, where, okay, now I'm measuring my recovery score and I'm trying to gamify the process. And then all of a sudden, I'm now trying to gamify this strain score because I'm in a group with other people where you get put into a leaderboard based on how much strain you output that day. So
Bloody
now
hell.
I'm trying to
Yeah,
get
no, that's
21. I'm trying to get 21.0 as a strain score, as the top score that you can get against a group of other people, because
crazy.
credibility wise, I felt like I needed to be the best
Want to
person
be
that
in the
was
top.
outputting every day. But that's the same for everything. You could have the same for sleep, for recovery,
Yeah.
for strain, for output. So if I wasn't the top
Mate,
at
I thought
sleep,
I was
it's
competitive.
crazy.
That's a different level of competitiveness. You want the highest sleep score.
Yeah,
That
but
is,
that's the thing.
you are
Like,
one competitive dude, mate.
but you look at some of the biggest influencers in that space. Like, you've got the Buttery Bros in the CrossFit sector. You've got loads of functional fitness competitors. You've got High Rocks athletes that all have these group channels which you can go in and be a part of. And you can be a part of a group that's got strain, sleep, recovery, and overall whatever, like your score stress wise. Now, if you're top of the training ladder or top of the sleep ladder, etc., you end up competing against other people and it becomes a gamified process.
That's
Now, for
mad.
somebody who is obsessive and is probably already dealing with a lot of stress management and dealing with a lot of compulsive issues in terms of their day-to-day being and life,
Mm,
that's going to be a challenge for somebody who doesn't understand how to negate that, for
yeah.
somebody who doesn't understand that they can listen to their body because they're so concerned about perfecting and fine-tuning how much they put out every day or how well they sleep, etc., etc. Like, all that's well and good. Your strain could be high. You could then try and be the highest sleep score recovered dude. And then, like, well, then what happens? You go on to bed at 6 o'clock in the evening to try and get your sleep recovery up. Where the fuck do you spend time with your family and your 2 kids
Oh,
that you've
that's
got?
crazy.
But that's
Yeah,
the type
mate,
of
that's the
thing.
first time I've ever heard that. That is absolute for me. That's absolutely insane to be trying to compete against other people for your sleep scores and your recovery index. Like, it's the other way around. You can use the information that you're gaining from it to make adjustments, but not to try and perfect these numbers. You can't perfect the numbers. You can do everything right. You could go to bed at 6 o'clock and the score doesn't come out right because you scratched your ass halfway through the night and it measured as you getting up and waking up. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
It's
you
just,
bang on the
mate,
money, mate.
that's
You bang
crazy.
on the money. And
That's
it's not
crazy.
that, I mean, I didn't go down the rabbit hole of trying to be the best slept or anything, but I
Yeah.
definitely gamified a little bit when I was in the groups, that I wanted to kind of put out the best overall weekly or monthly strain.
Yeah.
Like you could measure it, you could look daily, or you could look
Yeah.
weekly, or you could look monthly. Like I was definitely one of those characters. Like I'm going to put out the best monthly overall strain.
Yeah. I mean,
Because the
you're a
best
competitive
monthly,
dude. You want to high
100%.
levelly compete. So if anyone puts a group on there, you're going to compete regardless because that's how you are. So I think that's the psychology that you need to have with the wearables, is have the right approach with these. Like use it just to gather some data, but not dictate your life and not make, not changes like that where you're trying to hit.
Exactly that. And even worse, mate, I created a group that I wanted to have with my clients in that were also Whoop users. So straight away, there's now actual sight, as it were, on what my strain score looks like each day. So you almost have this incessant need and desire and pressure to show up each day so that your strain score. Now that's my psychology. I'm
Otherwise,
not saying.
otherwise
I'm
they'd
not
see you being
saying.
as a layabout all day.
A
Like, and
hundred
you're like,
percent,
oh,
yeah,
look,
a
Dean's
hundred
done fuck
percent.
all today.
Like
Wow.
Dean's got Dean's got a 3.0 strain score, or
He's had a
Dean's
nice
got
day off.
4 hours of sleep. Dean's got a 4 hour sleep score. Well, hang on a minute. Who the fuck is he to talk about? But so you were constantly
Yeah.
like,
Wow.
but
Yeah.
again, that's the psychology that I put myself. That's my psychology. That's
Yeah.
my brain wiring. Nobody else's. That's how I viewed things. And I'm not saying anybody else has that issue, but
No.
that can be the cost
Yeah.
of what could happen when you have this behavioral dependency on the use of the software. And it kind of did feel that way. I'd wake up in the morning and I would journal. They've got a journaling thing that you can use on the Whoop. And you go down, it's a tick or a cross. So did you drink water yesterday? Tick. Did you do this? Tick, tick, tick. Did you engage in intimate activity? Tick or cross. Whatever it was, you start putting all this information in. And if you don't do it, you then stress yourself out, think, oh, I forgot to do that. And there's just so many behavioral dependency things that come up against using these apps that we become a slave to the wearable that we've got.
Absolutely.
And
I mean,
I think that's
I've
the
seen,
downside, isn't it?
absolutely. I've seen downsides to even other data in wearables. I mean, I've had athletes, I still have athletes that, track their training sessions with me, and their S&C sessions, their strength sessions, their resistance training sessions, and they turn their activity tracker on their Apple Watch on. And God forbid they forget to put that on in the beginning of the session. Forgot to put my tracker on. And this is like real world scenario. I forgot to put my tracker on. I'm like, well, how does that matter? I want to see, what my impact. I'm like, trust me, we're going to work. That what Apple Watch does it, whether it tells you you've burnt 80 calories in a session or 100 and a million calories, I don't care. That's not data we need. And it's mad because if they don't close all the rings on the Apple Watch, flipping hell. If they don't close all the rings, the obsessive nature of making sure you close all the rings. So I think you can see that obsessive nature with wearables if you have that type. That's not the wearable's fault. That's that's yourself as an individual being an obsessive person. But I think it works for a lot of people if they can use the data to just make conscious decisions or like have an insight. Let's go, okay, couple of days bad sleep. I've got a big session Saturday. Possibly, let's see how it goes. I wouldn't even change the session. I would go knowing with the data and then assess a couple of sets in. I'll know from my RAR scores or whatever, my IPEs, that I feel that weight was. You'll know pretty well. When you do, let's say you've done 150 kg last week and then you get 150 kg loaded up and you lift it and you go, that is definitely 280 kg. Let me check the bar again. Okay, that's your first indication. Something might not be going right today and you might need to make the change. But even then, I'll still, work through a couple of sets and see where we're at before we make that decision. If you're going to take the data from the day before, one acute data, sleep scores down, recovery index isn't down, isn't high, and you make that change straight away, that's a bit unnecessary. That's a bit, you're relying on that data to be completely accurate. So I think it really works with, I know I've got some athletes it works really, really well with. They take the data, they have a look at it, they go, okay, I'm trending down on my sleep. I need to just implement something on change and sleep. And we'll use that to implement some change, okay? Because, for us as well, mate, that clients will say, yeah, it's all good. But if we're getting the data, we take that, yeah, it's all good out of it. And we can actually look at the data and say, hold on, dude, you're saying you're getting your 8 hours sleep, but you're going to bed an hour later, 4 days a week. And sometimes they don't want me to see the data. So like, it is what it is. And conveniently, they forgot to put their wearable on.
Yeah. Do you know what? That's probably a good way to kind of highlight some stuff there, is that as a coach, if you're using it to inform some decisions that you make in the context of speaking and communicating regularly with the athlete, then brilliant. Like, there's actually some upside to utilizing wearables and utilizing how they give you data and what you do with that information. You can link them with apps nowadays. I know that with True Coach has maybe 7 or 8 different health tracking apps that allow it to link with it. Things like Whoop or Apple Health, etc. So when I'm seeing clients say, okay, activity levels have been feel like they've been quite high this week, and we go into their data and we find actually the step count and their overall day-to-day activity is like down to an average of, I don't know, maybe 6,000 steps, where their normal routine is 8 to 9,000 steps. It might be there that the impact of stress or the impact of day-to-day work has made them feel like actually there's a lot more going on behind the scenes than what is giving off in terms of walking and activity. So you can then start to identify, well, actually, what level of stress is having an impact on how you're viewing activity levels and how you're viewing yourself and how you're viewing your training. So and that's the downside, isn't it? If we were to kind of separate the two things here, the downside of wearables is that accuracy and behavioral dependency are probably the two big traits that we would look. And again, the cost and value, like they're not cheap. They are absolutely not cheap. Like, a Whoop subscription comes with a price tag. An Aura subscription comes with a price tag. Having an Apple Watch costs a lot of money. And all of these things that you'd spend money on to tell you that you're shit at sleeping and you're probably overtraining, well, you could have probably done that just by having a bit of a self-reflective conversation to a degree. And like, you don't need a Whoop to tell you that you're binging Netflix and you're not sleeping like a fucking adult. Like, that's the bottom line, isn't it? So,
I think definitely with your post, where it's like, if you're not at a sort of intermediate to advanced level, because that's what we'll work with quite a lot of those people in the intermediate to advanced level. They've got their shit ready before they come to us a lot of the time, haven't they?
Yeah. I mean, even with beginners though, as well, dude, like, to be honest, I have beginners that, and again, this is where it's really important to understand personality, because if they are an obsessive, compulsive, visionary, entrepreneurial, data-driven individual, and they like that data, and we can educate them and support them, I think as a beginner, it's not a problem, on the provision that you know what you're doing with it and you've got somebody to help and support you and guide you through it. Like, that's my own opinion anyway.
Yeah. I think for me, on the earlier start, it would be just get to know your feedback, your own biofeedback first. Like, listen to your body. Like, and like you say, if you haven't got all your shit sorted, forget about tracking it all. If you're going to bed like in the middle of the night like a teenager, and you're boozing 3 times a week, let's say you're just nowhere near where you need to be, tracking this shit's not going to give you the data you need. Okay, actioning changes, and then looking at the data is gonna be where you need to go. But if you've got things in a line, then you're ready to sort of like track this data. I would normally start with, I just have a readiness questionnaire, which is really simple. It's like, what's your mood like? And there's 5 scores. What's your nutrition been like? Absolutely dog shit, really good. 5 different scores. It's a really simple bridge to just understanding how you feel, what your mood's like, and just understanding your body. Then I feel like if you know that and you can do that really well, bringing in a wearable and getting that extra data can help you. But if you don't have that good biofeedback early, I think you just rely on the data, and then you get obsessed by the data because you're not listening to your body at the same time. It's like, it is a tool, but it's definitely not the holy grail of how you progress with everything and what your sleep's like. It really isn't.
Yeah,
I mean, the sleep stuff is terrible anyway. I mean, how it recognizes REM to deep sleep, it's just not there. The technology is just not there yet. Because basically, it recognizes deep sleep from you absolutely not moving, But that's not the only way to measure deep sleep is like in a lab, and you need some proper kit on your head. So that's basically an estimate, or not even an estimate, it's a guesstimate that, okay, this individual's not moving in bed, this must be deep sleep, let's start the deep sleep timer. And then if you're slightly twitching and there's a slight twitch, then that's REM sleep. You're like, that's not the best way to get like the data. So we're not even getting the accurate data right now. So mate, next 10 years, mate, it'll be phenomenal, won't it? We'll put a little implant in our head and it'll know the whole lot. But at the moment, if you're using a sleep score for something, it is just a score to have a look at a trend over time and correlate that to, okay, I've been a little bit more stressed. I have been, I've not been doing the right things with my sleep. Okay, it is actually having an impact on my sleep, because sometimes people need to see the impact, don't they? Because if you're having shit sleep, you can still wake up feeling a bit fresh, can't you? You can still be like, okay. I'll give you a scenario, actually, mate. I know I'm talking a lot, but I had a young lad. I've got a 15-year-old boxer that comes in to see me twice a week, really, really. And he's a super strong lad. He's only 60 kg, deadlifting 130 on a trap bar, like over double weight for reps. We put the same weight on from the last week for the first set. He couldn't shift it. I said to him, what was your sleep last night? He went, I went to bed at 5 a.m. I went, mate, what are you doing? He goes, I just couldn't sleep, and then I watched something on YouTube, and he thought, because he woke up and he felt all right, and he's only 15, so like you've got to understand, they're not like in tune with this stuff, are you? I mean, I wasn't at 15. So he's like, oh, but I felt all right. I'm like, mate, that's not how it goes. Like, you could wake up and feel like shit, but sometimes it's the internal stuff going on. And I said, look, do me a favor, next session, just go to bed early, turn off your phone, turn off your thing, and let's just see what happens. So he came in Tuesday. That was like last Thursday. He came in Tuesday, annihilated the weight, 10 kilo PB. So sometimes they just need to see the impact. And if they can get a sleep score and then they have a shit session and then they get a better sleep score and they have a good session, then they can go, actually, okay, sleep's quite important. So
I love that.
There's so many uses to it. It's implementing it at the right time. And it is that scenario you said with the supplement thing. They focus on these scores before they even tried to implement some change to their sleep pattern. Like,
it's almost like, I said this in a post before about creatine, and people that take creatine as a supplement, like, that's a great supplement to use cognitively, performance-wise, energy deficits. I say energy deficits, improving our ability to utilize energy as a substrate, whatever that might be, ATP, PC. Like, understanding creatine and its use, if you are still sleeping shit, not eating well, and stressed out through the high nines of the roof, guess what? Just taking a shit and just put a little bit of glitter over the top of it. It's still shit. But it's still shit. And it's the same with understanding and I think this is a great segue to talk about these positives. They can be used effectively, but we can't have a shit, sprinkle some glitter over the top, and then say it's something different, that it's a portrait of some amazing painting. When it's not, it's still shit with glitter on. So if we consider the whole thing, you've just alluded to something so great. And I think if we were to look at how they can be used effectively, that's the difference between pairing, like you talk about a 15-year-old. Like, let's say you had a whoop strap. If you could pair a wearable with some fundamental understanding, you have got an absolute irreplaceable opportunity to make change. Like, if you know that you are really, 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 really tired, your whoop strap is probably talking to you about fatigue as well. And you know that you had a crap night's sleep last night, although despite you trying to get a good night's sleep, you could wake up and have a readiness score that might be in the amber category. Yeah, it might be in the amber category. And by the way, I'm talking about red, amber, and green as readiness, right? So the amber category might be, I'm okay, but I probably couldn't do a full session, or I might just need to strip things back a little bit, a protocol that we use of all our athletes. If they're in the amber category and you've paired that with the use of you knowing that your sleep data has told you you're not in a great place, then you have an opportunity to affect change, because then you can still get the stimulus without the overtraining effect of doing too much volume, and then live to fight another day. And that's the thing that we have to kind of understand. The second piece with that is actually taking action. Those people that those people that have a wearable and it tells you that your heart rate variability it's really fluctuating. It's high one day, it's really low the next. It's so disjointed. Your resting heart rate is exponentially spiked, more so than what it is with a trend. Body temperature is telling you, actually, you've got some elevated body temperature and there's a bit of a stress response happening here. This could be the start of something. And even if you were to start measuring that and pairing that up with alcohol, you might even see the effects that alcohol could have on other things other than how you feel as a hangover. Because actually, body temperature changes, your resting heart rate changes, your heart rate variability changes, the deepness and breadth and depth of your sleep changes, and how your body deals with all of that information internally changes. And if you can see that, that might inform decisions about probably not a good idea to do that, have that training session on that day. I still want to have a social life, but maybe I'm going to move some of the higher volume, high stim days to these days because this is where it's better fitted in my program. So this is how they can be effective. Stripping it back, actually taking some action on the information that you've got, and then pairing that with those basics and fundamentals that we talk about all the time. That's when a gadget or a wearable can be so valuable. Like I've used Whoop, Garmin, Apple Health, Aura, Fitbit, you name it. I have used it. I have tried it because I've needed to become a bit of a jack of understanding all of it. And none of it matches the intuitive ability of understanding how your body is reacting to things. And it's great for learning, but none of it matches your ability to just do the basics really, really well. Eat nutrient-dense food. Sleep like an adult, not a pre-pubescent teen. Actually get some good, intentful work done when you go in the gym. And I know we could even talk about the basis of training. I feel like the fitness industry has complicated it, but it's complicated it at the foundational level. And what I mean by that is a lot of new people coming into fitness are thinking light years ahead before the pillar
blood
of
glucose monitors and
100% before the base of the pyramid is built. But equally, I know coaches and trainers that unfortunately are being swayed by all these things that think they have the ability, the understanding, and the knowledge to coach all of these things that are light years ahead, when the knowledge, skills, and experience haven't been developed in building an understanding of what the basics really are. So it's really important that as the industry evolves, anybody listening to this understands that they can be effective wearable tools. They really, really, really can. But it's understanding, where do they fit in your practice? And I suppose this is the really, really big question. And I'm going to do this for two demographics, and I think this will be great for your understanding. For athletes, for Gen Pop. Like, are wearables really worth it?
Yeah. So hard to answer.
Yeah.
With the right...
Let's put the hat
on they are.
Yes, of an athlete first.
Yes, they are. For an athlete, they are. And there's comes with about 15 ifs and buts.
Context always matters, doesn't it?
Context,
it's always.
Yeah. Do you know what? The answer is always, in my head, mate, it depends. It's never a yes or no. It depends.
And I think you've learned that as an evolution of coaching, right? That you've learned that it's never an absolute.
No, with the fact that I've implemented this stuff with my own training for a very, very long time, and the fact that I've had athletes for a very, very long time use the data, and I've fluctuated using them a lot, and then, you know, periods where I'm actually just don't even say to guys that they need them. I would say it really just depends on the right individual, and it will be like individually case where I go, okay, that person would be great with a wearable. You know, the data that we would get, and we can partner that with stuff like that. I would say as wearables evolve, they're just going to be a no-brainer. But at this stage, they're definitely not for everyone. That's definitely what I would say. They're not for everyone. If everyone's planning Christmas presents for a wearable and they haven't even started going to the gym yet, you know, like, and sometimes you need something shiny new to get yourself to go. But if you've asked for an Apple Watch or an Aura Ring and then you're going to go to the gym, you're doing it completely the wrong way round. So for the Gen Pop that haven't started or they're new to their journey, there's so much you can do before you need that. Then athlete wise, I think I would say there's some data we can use for sure.
I have a similar train of thought. And this goes twofold. If you're an athlete and your job is performing, or a big portion of your life is fitness, or a big portion of your life is competing, then I think there is a prerequisite checklist that needs to kind of be ticked off before you take a Whoop or an Aura ring or a device as the thing that you're going to do. Now, if you're an athlete and you've optimized things, like you've tried to make the sleep environment the best it can be, your sleep hygiene, you have done what you need to do to make it the best you can be. And what I mean by that is, and again, within each of these subcategories, there will be tick lists. So if you're sleeping and your sleep's good quality, i.e., you're getting in between 6 to 8 hours each week or each night, you are going to bed at a reasonable time, you're not using your electronic devices before bed, and you've tried to create the best environment you can for sleep, then a wearable could actually benefit a little bit more from a sleep perspective. From a training strain standpoint, if you are somebody that has built a consistent routine and a consistent schedule with training, and you have played with the volume and the intensity curve, you've played with how you feel about doing certain exercises and the motivation to train, and all of that's there, and it's consistent and it's habitual, and this is such an important part of your life, training and activity wise, and you've got that prerequisite, then again, a wearable could be another step or another tool in understanding a little bit more about what's happening internally with the body. So yes, lifestyle wise, you are never going to be on top of all of your shit.
No way.
Period. Relationships, finances, stress, nutrients. Yes, you could probably got a lot of control over nutrients. Now, if you've got a really good food map, as in if your food map and everything that you eat is varied, it's good, diet's a good 80-20, whatever that needs to be, then yes, it could help. But if you're still the type of person that's nailing 4 takeouts a week and you're reactive with your food and you don't know your ass from your elbow and you're still trying to clean up all that stuff, keep focusing on that cleanup of the nutritional stuff, because that's probably where a lot of people get let down before you then start looking at a wearable to help support you further in understanding your body. It's the same with tracking and everything in between too, right? So when I look at people that have them, I'll always go straight down the line of, okay, your Gen Pop, like if my clients are Gen Pop or if they're athletes, I will go down the line of, okay, you're a gym goer or you're quite serious about your training. Have we got the basics nailed down first of all? If you come into me, the likelihood is you probably need some help and support with that. If we get that done and we manage to achieve that in our combined performance assessment phase and then our foundational catalyst project phase and the block that we go through, and we can get that done, then you say to me, I'd love to try an Aura. Okay, that's cool. Let's do that. If you come to me as an athlete and you have all of that dialed down, but training is one of the things that we've got to get in place, okay, then maybe there is a time and an opportunity to use that. The other side of the coin is, if they come to me with these data or these devices already, I'm sitting back and I'm going, okay, I'm going to ask you some good questions now. If that Whoop strap said this or that Aura ring said that, what would you do with that information? How would you react to that information? What would you do in this scenario, in this instance? And actually, I'm going to get a bit of a good conversation going, because I'm going to start identifying whether or not they look at this data all too much and it actually makes them change decisions, or they start doing things slightly differently. So my big question is, are they worth it when I'm speaking to people, is the same as you. It depends. And it depends on a number of factors if they've got all their prerequisite checklists ticked off. And it also depends, if they've already got one, how much is it actually impacting them in their day-to-day business? Because if it's impacting them negatively, I'm probably going to say, well, why don't we strip it back a little bit? Why don't we work on some feelings, some subjectivity? Because I think that says a lot about people, because it actually allows them to inform themselves about how they're feeling, which in a day and age where the internet used to be an escape from reality and how you feel is now the escape from the internet. And we need to get better at learning those things and those, how our body is
absolutely
responding to things. I think it's just so important in that. So again, it depends question for me.
I think, do you know what, with what you were saying, and it just came to my head, I think where the wearables need to develop, and I think it's probably, we should go and tell Aura and Whoop to get on this. And I don't know if Whoop does it. I know what Aura doesn't, but they should ask the people questions as well to correlate a score before they give it. So, right, you've got this data about the sleep. You've got this data. Now ask the person, before you decide to sleep, how do you feel this morning? Like, did you wake up tired? Like, score it out of 10. What was nutrition like yesterday? Did you eat well? Score it out of 10. How hard was training yesterday? Like, imagine if they asked you as an individual some of that data, so you could score and you can go, okay, actually, this is where I feel, this is where I feel, and they could use that to combine the data that they're getting in the wearable to give you a more, you know, accurate response to where you are, you know, because it's you're getting one side of the coin, aren't you? And everyone's forgetting the other side of the coin completely. They're not just listening to biofeedback, listening to how you feel, asking yourself simple questions like, you know, I know I'm tired because I'm ratty as fuck at the moment. Someone says something bad to me, their head's getting torn apart. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's where I'm at the moment, and I know, and I'm aware of it, so I can listen to that. Don't need Aura to tell me that.
But imagine if AI and those wearables had the power
They will. Yeah,
to
they will.
understand things like irritability, motivation to train, overall
Yeah.
energy, nutritional scores. If we
Yeah.
took that information on board and then AI and these wearables were able to kind of come to an informed decision about potentially some things to consider, it could
Yeah.
then pump out a protocol and say, based on the information you've provided and the data that we've tracked over the past 12 hours or 24 hours or whatever it is, these are some of the things that we might want to look at and start associating with this type of data. We might want to see a reduction in training volume. We might want to consider a bigger, deeper, richer nutrient profile. And now we're talking about an app that's doing that, but also measuring the food too. Great.
Yeah.
Because now what we've got is we've got something that almost becomes like an assistant AI coach, which is telling you to be more aware of those subjective feelings and those objective data points to go, right, this is what we propose. This is where AI, and based on thousands of studies, and imagine it was able to pull all of this objective information straight away. Great, that's actually going to help the coach. Coach is still going to have a job, an incredible job of how we interpret that and do things with that. But actually, imagine if that gave people the power to start being more aware of how they feel, even if they started grading things with smiley faces, sad faces,
Yeah.
like you could make it something so simple. And this will just inform, I think, a lot of how the future of maybe wearables is going to look. So, you know, we go back to that point. Are wearables worth it? It's absolutely an it depends question from both of us, or an it depends answer.
From two people that have got combined 15 gadgets. We can't really say no, can we? We can't really
No,
say
and
no.
I will never ever say to somebody, don't use a wearable. But if you're ready to leverage the data and level up your performance, your game, your health, then absolutely. But if you're tracking for the sake of tracking and you're becoming a little bit of a data junkie, like save your
Any
money.
obsessive nature.
Yes,
you've got an
save your
obsessive
money.
nature to compete or an obsessive nature to look at numbers and overanalyze, then maybe just wait until you really feel like you need some data before you go there, because you know we're quite analytical people, aren't we? So we've both been there where we've overused it, you know, and obsessed by it. So
absolutely.
and if we're going to do it, then others are definitely going to do it, mate, because we know the ins and outs of this stuff a little bit more than most people, don't we? So
yeah, for sure. But you know, I think a great conversation, team, and you know, from both of us, if this episode hit home, you know, share it with somebody else that might need to hear it, or equally, like reach out to Akos and I and share your experiences. Like, we are all about making fitness as accessible and health as accessible as it can be to everybody. Trying to take information, understand it, and then regurgitate it back to you in a way that's applicable and real and relates to you. So, and that's exactly why this podcast is here. The podcast is here to help anybody just navigate the world of health and fitness, because now more than ever, we're in an age where you can just learn so much for absolutely nothing from some amazing people. And that's what Akos and I have done through thousands of hours of podcasts and books that we try to regurgitate. So if we can simplify things and just give you an aha moment or a, oh, that makes sense moment, then this podcast has done its job. And we'd love to hear if this podcast is hitting home with you and if it's all making sense. So, you know, another amazing chat, my good sir. Really, really enjoyed this one. Hopefully
awesome,
you guys at home were able to enjoy this just as much as Akos and I do. And as always, ladies and gents, we look forward to welcoming you back to another episode 54 if you stick around. But you have just listened to Akos and myself on the Art of Performance podcast waffle about wearables. So stay tuned for the next one, ladies and gents. Akos, my brother, I'll speak to you soon. Take care.
Take care.